John Harwood, thank you very much, as always. So, what exactly went on in that big dinner last night, and why has the president completely changed his strategy? Where is this story going? Joining me on set this evening, CNBC contributor, former Clinton White House aide Keith Boykin, and we welcome Congressman Dave Schweikert, Republican from Arizona. Welcome. I want to begin, however, with another very special guest, Senator John Hoeven from North Dakota, who was actually one of the roughly 12 Republicans to break bread with the president last night. Senator Hoeven, we welcome you back, sir. Thank you. So, what is driving this? How do you see this, and where's this going?
Well, look, we had a good dialogue, and I think it's an opportunity to figure out how we come together to address our debt and deficit, which we need to do. So I hope the president continues to engage us for the good of the American people.
Is one of the key points that came up last evening that the president wants to get rid of the sequester and then put together a grand design?
You know, not really. We went through where we're at with the sequester right now. We made it very clear we have to make these reductions, and we're working to do it. The House passed a continuing resolution. It's now in the Senate. We're working on it in a bipartisan way. We'll make these reductions, I think, in a more thoughtful way than just across the board. What we really focused on was a big deal to address the debt and deficit with entitlement reform and pro-growth tax reform.
Senator, did the president mention any entitlement reforms? I met with Speaker Boehner yesterday. We talked a little about the so-called chained CPI, the cost of living adjustment, perhaps some means testing of Medicare. Much more has to be done. Much more will be proposed by Paul Ryan when his budget comes out. Did you get down, the president, anybody, into more specifics on entitlement reform?
Yeah, we talked about entitlement reform. How do we reform both Medicare and Social Security in a way that protects and preserves those programs, that keeps them basically the way they are for current seniors, but for our younger generations, how do we make changes to make sure they're there in the future? But we also talked about tax reform, and we have differences. We feel that revenue comes from economic growth. He still, of course, is pushing for higher taxes.
So his definition of tax reform is different than yours.
It is. But look, we've got a timeline here over the next 4 or 5 months as we go through addressing the sequester, which we're going to do by making reductions in the most thoughtful way possible. I think we've got a good process in the Senate to do that now. Then we go into the budget challenges, figuring out how we get a House and Senate budget and bring them together. And the debt ceiling again comes up in May. That creates a real opportunity to get a big deal. The president needs to stay engaged and work with us to do that.
Just a couple before I bring our distinguished panelists in, and probably have to ask some questions too. Did you raise the issue of the Keystone Pipeline? You're from up in North Dakota. I know that's been a key issue for you. Did you raise Keystone?
Well, Larry, actually, I didn't have to. I started talking about energy and what an incredible opportunity is. And he said to me, John, I know you want to get the Keystone Pipeline done. And I said, yes, that's right, Mr. President. We need a timeline. This has been going on too long. We need to get it done. And, he said, okay, which kind of didn't mean yes or no, but he referred me to one of his energy advisors. So I'm setting up a meeting to have that discussion. We'll see what happens.
And finally, just generally, you've been to a lot of meetings with a lot of dignitaries, and you've met presidents before. How was the tone at this thing? Was it relaxed? Was it on edge? How did you read the meeting?
It was good. I think if you talk to any of the senators that were there, it was remarkably good. And there was a real focus on, look, let's take these next 4 to 5 months. Let's go at this hard. And Mr. President, stay engaged with us. Don't go back on the campaign trail and criticize Congress. Get in here, work with us. Let's get it done.
What did he say to that when you said, don't go on the campaign trail, stay and work with us? How did he react to that?
Well, so far, he's going the right direction. I mean, you saw that he met with Chris Van Hollen today and also Paul Ryan. Next week, he's going to be up meeting with us. We'll see. You know, the proof will be in the pudding.
All right. We have the distinguished House member Dave Schweikert from the great state of Arizona. Do you want to ask Senator Hoeven a question?
Senator, I actually have one question that you mentioned tax reform. And look, we know that the president wants more revenues from it. But was there at least any sparkle in anyone's eyes at that table about the idea of doing a broader, lower rate tax reform package?
We said specifically that's how we should do it. We all agree there should be revenue. The difference is we believe it comes with economic growth. If you do pro-growth tax reform where you close loopholes but lower rates, you're going to get more revenue from economic growth, where he's still pushing for about $600 billion in net higher taxes. And that's a clear point of disagreement.
Keith, you want to ask Senator a question?
Yeah, well, two points. First, about the change CPI and the Medicare means testing. The president's already said he supports those things in the past. So
Right.
The idea that he's talking about this now, that's a concession he's already given. What exactly are the Republicans willing to concede?
Well, he is talking about both of those, and we agree. We're going to have to find a way to make changes in not only entitlement programs, but as I said, in the how we do the tax reform. So look, he's already gotten $600 billion in the fiscal cliff deal. So he's already gotten additional tax revenues. Now we need to figure out how we reduce spending and get economic growth.
How big an obstacle is the revenue side going to be, Senator?
I think we can get there. I think just what I've said. I think we're going to go through, we're going to get sequester done. We're going to do it in a more thoughtful way than across the board. We're going to get bipartisanship, I believe, in the Senate to do it, get that passed through Congress. But it's going to be hard to reconcile the House and the Senate versions of the budget. And then we still have the debt ceiling. I think that will create the impetus to get to the bigger reforms we're talking about.
Dave Schweiker, H.R. 1, I mentioned it to the speaker in our interview yesterday, tax reform. I am particularly interested in corporate tax reform. In fact, it is, in my opinion, humbly, the single most important potential pro-growth measure possible. Lower the rates, broaden the base for both large and small businesses. Is that going anywhere in the House?
Look, I'm pathologically optimistic on this one. I actually had a conversation with David Camp on the floor of the House 2 days ago.
Head of the Ways and Means Committee.
And he's a great guy. He does seem to be driving this. It may be the single most important thing that could come out over the next couple months, because it might be the one thing where the right and the left could actually have a common vision that we need to grow the economy, and you do it through tax code.
But the president's already said he supports lowering the corporate tax rate. The question is, what exactly are the Republicans going to offer and bring to the table? And I don't think anybody's answered that.
But no. First off, you have some mechanical problems here. A huge portion of our corporations now are pass-through entities. You know, the LLCs, the S corporations. So the old days of, well, we'll do corporate tax and then everyone else is screwed. I'm sorry, that world is very, very different today. We need to do something that's very broad-based. A lot of the lobbyist-created gimmicks need to leave the tax code, things the right and the left like, and lower those rates. Solely focus on economic growth, because that is something that will create true revenue.
Senator Hoeven, I want to just end with this question. Are entitlements inextricably linked to tax reform? Is that how this sort of came out last night?
I think you need both, and that's certainly the objective. But I would comment to the other people we're visiting with here. I don't have all the names, but I've been listening to their comments. When you look, we have already provided additional tax revenue. The key now is to get the kind of tax reform that'll get the economy growing. That's where we're going to generate revenue.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Senator John Hoeven. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.